Hello, ladies, gentlemen, everyone else, good folks, bad folks, everyone in between. Welcome to the Gentleman's Guide to Gaming. And you are here with me, Matthew Dawkins, Gentleman Gamer, as I sometimes go by. Oh, I've just realised these dice are an awful mess. I need to rearrange this. Somewhat chronic. Yeah, hello, people. It's good to be back on ye olde YouTubes and to be able to speak with all of you. If you happen to be tuning in, please do comment below to say that you're here. Also, I always love it if people can comment to say whether they can actually hear me. Hello, Nicholas. How is my audio? Is my audio coming through okay? Do let me know. How are you doing? Good evening to Kava Kagambo. I do apologize if I mispronounced that. That would be a bad start, wouldn't it? Is my audio coming through all right? I hear you. Excellent. Southampton Vampire by Night. And wonderful. You can all hear me. LARP Crafter. Sykes Dose. Wonderful. All right. That means people are rolling in. Hello, Juan. Hello, the Lady Gamer. That would be Clara. Hello, Andrea Bedushi. There's people from my Discord turning up. That's wonderful as well. That's right, I have my own Discord channel. It's very exclusive. You have to be a Patreon of patreon.com/Matthew Dawkins to actually get on there, or just someone very, very special to me. One or the other. So, yeah, it's been a little while since last we were here, and I guess there's been lots of news, lots of new releases, and I've been playing and running lots of games since the last time I made a video. And yeah, really, the main purpose of my being here is because there's lots of exciting games going on right now, and I kind of wanted to tell people about them. I've always liked doing recaps of the games I'm running. Hello, Logan. I always like doing recaps of the games I'm playing, and also because there's some games I've discovered recently, I wanted to tell you about them. So it's kind of going back to the roots of this channel, except in a live format because I'm far too lazy to do a pre-recorded video and edit it. So yeah, hello, welcome to all the people who are rolling in right now. It's wonderful that you are all here. You must have all clicked that bell on my YouTube channel to be notified when one of my videos goes live, so that's always touching, lovely to see. So the first thing I wanted to tell people out, hello, Rafaelski. First thing I wanted to tell people about, in case they had missed it, it's only just gone live, is there's a Kickstarter. I am answering comments today, Hercules. There's a new Kickstarter that went live yesterday for Vampire the Masquerade Rivals. Now, this is a Vampire the Masquerade product I have not contributed to. There are some. And if that sounds grandiose, that is because I think I have contributed in some way or other to every single Vampire the Masquerade product that's out so far. That's nice. It's nice to know. But Rivals is not one of them. Rivals is a card game, and it's a card game in which you have 4 clans playable, and you're all vying for dominance or influence. Much like Vampire the Eternal Struggle, you are pitted against rivals in different clans and trying to oust them. But each clan has its own objectives. Objectives get drawn, and you have different characters, different city events, different actions you can take between the 4 clans. I actually got the chance to play it last week, and it was on Tabletopia, virtual tabletop essentially, and it was great fun. And I thought I wanted to tell you about it because most of the time, if I'm talking about games on here, I'm talking about games I've worked on, and this isn't one of them. And I thought it would only be fair to draw your attention to a game that I've not contributed to, but is really good fun. And I found it accessible. It's, as I say, it can support up to 4 players. And it really has that Vampire the Masquerade tabletop role-playing game feel to it. It has the feel of different characters vying for dominance in a domain, which you often get when you are playing, of course, members of a coterie in Vampire the Masquerade. So Rivals has only just gone on Kickstarter. I know it's already blown past its target, but I thought I would bring it to your attention if you didn't know, and the link is in the description below. The artwork in this game is magnificent, and I can already see see how I would use the cards as props in my game. Say a vampire looks like this, or an event looks like this, or a city location looks like that. So it's even worth supporting as a prop box. Last thing on Rivals is my understanding is that it is a complete game. It is not going to be a game that requires additional expansions to be made more fun. It's already plenty versatile enough, but the game is, for all intents and purposes, one and done. Everything within that box is enough you need. So yeah, that's Vampire the Masquerade Rivals. I wanted to tell people about something that I haven't worked on for once. And I'm obviously still a massive fan of Vampire. So yeah, it's good to send a bit of love to the way of Renegade Game Studios and their card game. So let's see who is in the comments right now. We also have Tony saying, "It's alive." Nerdbert service. Nicholas says, "I always wanted to ask, the vampire jumping on people on the cover of the Chicago folios, is that a named character?" It is not a named character, probably because that Masquerade breach would have seen them destroyed immediately. Tony says, "Hey, Matt, my name's Matthew, but I'll accept your greeting, Tony." Hi, Tone. Andrea says, "One day I want to have all the manuals behind you. You'll have to rob my house for that, Andrea." Rob Walker Film says, "Howdy." Hi, howdy, Rob. And Rob is also a writer. He's contributed work to Onyx Path Publishing before. He has contributed, in fact, to They Came From Beyond the Grave, as well as one of They Came From Beneath the Seas source books. Logan says, "Sounds like Vampire the Masquerade Risk Edition." It is similar to Risk in the sense that you're all playing against each other, trying to oust each other, trying to accumulate a certain number of points, except there's no board. It's all made up of the cards you play. Tony wants an up-to-date tour of my collection. So, yeah. Yeah, that might take a while, but I guess we could do it at some point. If you have any questions about any of the books, as you can see, some of them are missing because they're in use. Do ask. Larpcrafter says, "Is Rival similar to Eternal Struggle or simply simpler?" Slightly simpler. It is similar to Eternal Struggle in the sense that it's a Vampire the Masquerade card game in which you are each playing powerful members of clans trying to oust your opponents and prove victorious. The difference is it isn't just a points game in the sense of you get points for eliminating people, you get points for other objectives as well. If you're familiar with games like Lords of Waterdeep, it has that kind of versatility because those objectives might change from game to game, meaning you've got to adapt your play each time too. Likewise, depending on who the person preying on you is or who your rival is, the game changes as well. So the fact that there's 4 clans in it may sound diminished because everyone knows Vampire the Masquerade has 13 clans plus Caitiff plus Thin Bloods plus all the bloodlines, but really they're so versatile you can do a hell of a lot with all of them. Hercules says, "Are Scion videos coming back? Those videos are amazing." Yes, they will be. It has been incredibly busy during the isolation period imposed by COVID, and I don't begrudge the fact that people are isolated. I think that's a good thing when there's a pandemic raging, but at the same time, it does mean I don't always have the house free to make videos, which is why there haven't been many of them either on here or the Onyx Path YouTube channel. But when I get the opportunity, there will be more Gentleman's Guide to Scion videos. Nicholas says, he likes Hercules' name. Well, who doesn't like the name Hercules, or Heracles, if you would prefer? So the other thing I wanted to tell you about is They Came From Beyond the Grave, that's currently on Kickstarter. You may be familiar with the fact that I developed a game called They Came From Beneath the Sea, all the way from concept through to publication. As of this Wednesday, you'll be able to buy it in print on demand and PDF if you missed the Kickstarter. Well, They Came From Beyond the Grave is very much the sequel, but it's set in 1970s horror movies. So Hammer Horror, Amicus, Roger Corman, things like Dark Shadows, the old portmanteau horror movies of the era with Technicolor blood, heaving bosoms, Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing. They didn't generally have heaving bosoms. But They Came From Beyond the Grave is that game. It is the Hammer Horror role-playing game. And I'm so pleased to be able to tell you that as of time of recording, it has passed 200% of its funding target, which is better than I could have imagined. I'm really proud of Beyond the Grave, perhaps even more so than Beneath the Sea, because I always saw Beneath the Sea as a single game. I didn't anticipate it being the start of any great line. But Beyond the Grave almost does more for me as a concept than Beneath the Sea. I still love Beneath the Sea, but Beyond the Grave is just so magnificent. So many people love the horror of the 1970s, that dawn of the slasher era, the sort of end of the Dracula era as well, and all these tales of the unexpected, Tales from the Crypt, House That Dripped Blood, all the Vincent Price movies as well. All of that's bundled in there. And I think that book has been written so well by the authors, some of whom are in the viewership right now, including Clara, including Rob, and I'm just really proud of what the team put together. Also, the art for it is wonderful, and I never give enough credit to the artists on our role-playing games, but if you head over to the Kickstarter, the link is in the description below. You will be able to see that art, some of that art from Beyond the Grave. And if you haven't backed it already, I really hope I can convince you to do so now. One last thing on the subject of Beyond the Grave, although I will be taking questions if you have any, is if you want the physical copies of the card decks that go with it, or a director's screen, the GM screen, you do have to add $20 for each. You don't pay any additional postage for them, but you do have to buy those accessories if you want them with the book, if you order a hard copy. So do keep that in mind. I've spoken to a lot of people that have backed for the book but didn't realize it doesn't come with the accessories. It does say it in the description, but not everyone reads the description to the finest detail. So do check that out. And yeah, if you want the quip cards, cinematic cards, and the director's screen as well, just add on a few dollars for those as well. Ikoren says, do I have a dream game pitch? Actually, I was just on the Onyx Pathcast, and we did a fun game. We did it about 50-odd episodes ago, where we basically throw random ideas at each other, and we come up with a game based on those ideas. And my favorite one, not to spoil the episode of the Onyx Pathcast, it's a podcast. This one will be coming out not next week, but the week after. One of the ideas I came up with, we ended up calling Descend and Conquer, which is all about in a world where the surface of the world is completely polluted and poisoned. And so everyone over the course of hundreds of years went underground. Now, the most powerful and the most ancient of these people went as deep underground as they possibly could. And there they found various troves of magical power and the like. Everyone else was stacked on top of them in layers. With the closer you are to the surface, the more polluted and mutated you're going to be. Now, the individuals at the very bottom are the aristocracy. They're going to be the leashes, the undead, if you like, the people that have access to all this magic, all these riches. If you want to see it in a Mad Max style, they control the water. So everyone closest to them gets the benefits, and everyone farthest away suffers. So you have the quandary of the deeper down you go, the more riches you can obtain, and you may want to do so for your layer of the underground. But of course, if you're carrying these sort of orbs of power, if you like, after wresting them from the lich of the fungal wastes, then everyone you pass is going to want to take them from you. Do you share that power just with your layer? Do you try and share it with everyone above you? Do you try and make the lives of people all the way at the top better, but at the same time maybe neglecting your family in doing so? That was an idea I came up with off of a simple line of a role-playing game in which you go to the darkest dungeon to kill kings. That was the idea, and I really like that. I can really see how you could play around with that a lot. So that's an idea for a game I'd like to pitch right now. Came up with that, in a minute. I'm sure I could come up with something a bit better given more time. Tony says, what's Kickstarter like to use or set up? Kickstarter, I've never set one up myself, but they've always been very successful for Onyx Path Publishing. I don't think we've ever had a Kickstarter that hasn't funded. We cancelled one, but that was just because it came at the cusp of COVID. We relaunched it and it funded. So, yeah, Kickstarter seems to do pretty well for us. Yep, Clara is on They Came From Beyond the Grave, and it does make it amazing. Nicholas says the Goosebumps books, despite being from the 90s, seem to fit that game's aesthetics. Definitely. I've already thought of They Came From Beyond Beneath My Bed, which would be a 1990s Are You Afraid of the Dark Goosebumps style teen horror game, young adult horror. Shane Wallace says, I'm a huge hammer mark. Good wrestling parlance there. Do you imagine that They Came From will be able to be played straight, as in as a true horror RPG, as well as the cinematic model? Definitely. If you check out redmoonroleplaying.com or Red Moon Roleplaying's YouTube channel, you will find I ran They Came From Beneath the Sea for them completely straight as a Lovecraftian horror game. Where rather than the players playing cinematics as like angry producers might, they were playing them as if they were great old ones, and the characters were the chosen acolytes of the great old ones in play. I think it was Nyarlathotep, might have been Cthulhu, and possibly Hastur. As long as I don't say Hastur another 2 times, I should be fine. Have I ever seen Huncules? Asks Yuri Ramos Braga Ferreira. I have. Red Seb Munza says, do you have any news to tell on Hunter the Vigil? I actually have the manuscript for Hunter the Vigil right now. I'm currently going through it, and it looks very nice. Check out a French game called Polaris, says Tony. Right now, I'm in the middle of a stream. Clara says, reminds me of a certain movie. Oh, well, yeah, you know, I'm always fond of high-rise style horror movies, or high-rise as a movie, as a novel. I like and the platform, of course. I wasn't even thinking of the platform at that point. But I like the idea of tiered horror. It is such an obvious visual metaphor, if you like, that I just really think it works. And yeah, now that you come to think of it, it's an inverted version of the platform, which is on Netflix right now. It's a Spanish movie, I believe, but obviously this would be more fantastical. You'd have the usual humans, elves, or it wouldn't have to. It could all be human or what not. John Smith says, hello, Matthew. Have you ever ran a game involving the Red List or your players wanting to be Alastors? I want to begin writing a game for such a thing and want to hear your take. I have, indeed. I played a game where I was playing an Alastor and hunting down members of the Red List. Did it across 3 long sessions at a convention under a fantastic storyteller by the name of Steve Ellis. Brilliant storyteller who runs Vampire the Masquerade amazingly well. And the general objective was each episode was a mission, and we had to hunt down a different person on the Red List, a different anathema each time. Now, being an Alastor is very different to being a vampire that isn't an Alastor. It's a very different game of Vampire the Masquerade. So I would suggest that if you intend to run it, think of running it in that mission style. It means that it feels completely different to a normal game of Vampire, and will come with different challenges as a result, but it kind of demonstrates the versatility that you get out of Vampire the Masquerade if you approach it from a different angle. Let's see. Tony says, by the way, you can call me Tone. It's not the worst thing I've been called. Cheers, Mum. All right, Anthony. Logan says, sounds like someone wants to seize the means of production. Exactly. Let's all be communist. Hercules says, I would very much like to see you covering Degenesis. Degenesis I've actually got up there. I've got Catharsis, Primal Punk, and Black Atlantic. I've not covered it yet. Red Seb, is there any European cons talked about your circle, like World of Darkness Berlin? I don't know about European conventions dedicated purely to World of Darkness, but at most UK cons, there's a World of Darkness presence. There'll be games running like Vampire the Masquerade, Chronicles of Darkness games too. Whether it's UK Games Expo, Tabletop Scotland, or the like. Contingency is a very good one. I always enjoy Contingency. It's very small, but it's dedicated purely to gaming. Make it 1980s and I'll buy it. Big 80s fan, music, movies, video games, RPGs. Well, check out They Came From Beyond the Grave, Tony, because there is enough 80s in there to please you, I think. Pavel says, They Came From Beyond the Grave Kickstarter is doing great. It is, thank you. Ikorin says, I'd like to see a good film noir-based game at some point. There's a Swedish one that was decent, but I haven't found any good ones in English. The best English film noir game I've played is A Dirty World by Greg Stolze. It's a brilliant little game. I ran a again, a 3-part campaign across the course of a convention for the same group each time, of a dirty world set in Atlantic City, of all places. I've ran another game there recently, set during Prohibition, and that was a lot of fun. If we were to do where they came from noir game, what would that be? Answers on a postcard or in the comments. Logan says, honestly, like the whole going down into the depths of the earth to fight the dead kings idea, especially with the option of possibly sharing the magic artifacts or hoarding it. Glad you like my idea, Logan. You can buy it off me if you like. Oh, it looks like Bambi just did. Apparently, Bambi contributed $9.99. Bambi, you don't need to send me money. This is all done for fun, but as you already have, and I don't think I have the option to refund it, thank you very much. I don't know what you do with money sent to you on YouTube. I don't think it's linked to anything. Maybe it will pay for a YouTube premium membership. So, yeah, thank you very much. I am genuinely grateful, but I will have to have a look into what that does. I was not there, says, speaking of underground societies, gentlemen, why isn't there Mole Gangrel that basically adapted Earthmeld to the point where they never have to leave it and are basically the monsters from Tremors? Probably because as player characters, they would be pretty dull. But as those characters do exist in Vampire the Requiem as a Nosferatu bloodline, the names of which... I wonder if they might have actually been the Nictuku in Requiem. They're in one of the Bloodlines books I've got up there anyway. AJ says, I live in a cool world. I think you may be the first person to ever say that about my life. Tony, we're still getting to the grips with your name, Antonius. Also, check out Symbaroum. I've still not played Symbaroum. 1970s was better. Really depends on your perspective, AJ. I will sign it, Tony. I will sign your They Came From Beyond the Grave. I think you can even buy it with a book plate in with signatures on. Southampton says, hi, Matthew. Do I attend vampire live-action role plays? And if so, do I have any good anecdotes about one? So you know, I think, Southampton Vampire by Night, that I live very close to Southampton. And because I know you're also based in the UK. I attended a live-action role play. The last one I really did was the Bath Camarilla. So Bath is a city or town. I think it's classified as a city in the UK. And we had a 19th century era Camarilla LARP. And I was the prince. And I think I've done a few videos on this channel in which I'm playing that prince, Arcadius Ambrosius? Arcadius Augustus was his name. And yeah, I had a lot of fun playing Arcadius, but live action roleplay doesn't tend to be my thing. I've only done a few of them in my life, not many. And I find that, and this is by no means tarring every single LARPer, but I find that some people live action roleplay just grate against me. No, that's not fair. I find that some of the conduct of some people that attend live action roleplays grates against me, because some people attend LARPs and have a very bullying attitude. They will use their character title to bully people in a way that seems to be, I guess, allowing them to be the dominant person they want to be. And it's an abuse of power, I think. I know that may sound a bit strange, a bit sensitive, but I've seen it enough times now in the very few LARPs I've attended where people seem to be getting off on playing powerful roles, that isn't for me. I'm prepared to say I'm not a good enough role player to make that distinction, or if it's a measure of being good, I don't know, but I really struggle to keep the divide in place and not end up resenting the people who I see treating it, let's say, as a meat market or an excuse to basically be a human turd. But that's not to say all live action role plays are like that. I haven't attended many. It's just that the ones I have attended have had that kind of thing appear in it. And yeah, I just don't get on with it terribly well. That said, the Bath Camarilla LARP was actually very good. And the best anecdote I can tell from that was probably... my character was obsessed with trains. He was embraced in the Roman period, a Ventru prince, and when the steam train was invented, he loved the idea of a rolling Elysium that went from Bath to London to see his grandsire Mithras. He was a high-ranking Mithraist, my character. And some of the other characters decided, I was an NPC, but some of the other characters, the player characters, they wanted to oust me, as they often do princes in LARPs. And so they decided they'd bomb my train. The problem was I had informants among the PCs who came back to me, and I ended up organizing it so they bombed a train full of humans, full of mortals, so their humanity took a hit and I survived, and then I punished them. That was fun. See, that's me getting off. No, not really, but it was a good character arc, and it was a good character arc for them as well. What's my favourite old World of Darkness setting, says Max Beer. Probably Wraith the Oblivion. What's my favourite cult in Degenesis? I'm not familiar enough with Degenesis yet to make that decision, Hercules. I'm from Maine, USA, and up here it only snows in November, so green grass for 11 months. Thank you, AJ. We're hot in the summer. Red Seb says, have I ever played Blades in the Dark? I have played Blades in the Dark, yes. Rob Walker says they came from beyond the silver screen. Well, in a way, a lot of them are like that, but that would be a good name for a noir game, yes. Pavel says, can I share how my experience from developing They Came From Beneath the Sea influenced the development of They Came From Beyond the Grave? Yeah. So I think for the most part, it informed my approach to humor, because They Came From Beneath the Sea is one of the first RPGs I've ever worked on. In fact, it is the first RPG I've ever worked on that deals with humor as an integral subject matter. And that came with its challenges, because players don't like to be told what's funny. So there was a hell of a lot of playtesting with Beneath the Sea to get it right. And that playtesting was also part of my development of the game. I ran it constantly as it was being written, and I think it really helped. What that meant was when it came to developing Beyond the Grave, I could have a far easier time of it because I already knew what worked. The thing that doesn't work in Beyond the Grave that does work in Beneath the Sea is Beyond the Grave isn't farcical. Beneath the Sea, there's a lot of nonsense because it's a cheap B-movie game, whereas Beyond the Grave is a more hammy, straight-faced horror game, but with comedic elements based on the fact that the sets are cheap, the makeup looks bad, the acting is bad. And so there is a tone adjustment that I became aware of while developing They Came From Beyond the Grave that I wouldn't have probably picked up on if I hadn't already done Beneath the Sea. So yeah, Clara and LARPcrafter agree with me on live action role plays. I was not there. Says I was doing some weird repeating. Red Seb says, hey, Clara. Clara says, hey, Red Seb. I don't know why I'm reading all this out for you. It's just if I start reading a name, I've got to finish what they said. AJ said, did I play in that simulator with the London Underground and go into a void and fell out of the train? I did play that London Underground simulator. It's on my The Gent in Question YouTube channel. No point subscribing to it because I never upload anything to it. I was locked out of it for about 3 years, which is why I just stopped having uploads. But I got back into it eventually, and now I just don't do anything with it. But my most viewed video of this channel or that one is Let's Play London Underground Simulator, I believe. And that was a bit of fun. Paladin Demo says, hello. Hello. John Smith, what do I think of the True Brouhaha? Personally, they're my favourite bloodline, but I find them underdeveloped and lacking in good motivation. I don't think much of the Trujar, as they're often called. I like the idea of them. I like the idea that the Brujah are the second clan, or the successors to the name of Clan Brujah. What I don't like about the True Brujah is time travel. Having a clan that is innately emotionless works for me as a concept. There seems plenty of people want to play the cold-blooded sociopath, especially if they get to then hide among Clan Brujah to do it. I don't know what the attraction is there. I've never really felt that appeal, but I can understand other people do. Maybe it's something they think is cool. I don't know. I don't want to sound like an old fogey, but I think some people look at the Brujah and think, they're constantly at a loss of temper. They're going to frenzy at any moment. And then they look at the true Brujah. They're cool. They're cold as stones. You know, they don't want to. They're never going to break. They will never lose their temper. They're just constant ice. And I think people look at that and think, wow, I want to play a true Brujah in shades. So as a concept, I can see the appeal. But when you get into the detail, Temporis, I really do not like as a discipline. I really do not like the idea of time-traveling vampires. My vampire games almost always sort of cut back the disciplines that don't feel very vampiric. And Temporis, for me, has never felt vampiric. If other people enjoy it, all power to them, but I don't. Let's see. Nicholas says, how do I think a city where there's a church of set presence and members of the ministry who have a different religion would look like? Check out Let the Streets Run Red, Nicholas, which is coming out soon, because that has Indianapolis, which is indeed a ministry-run domain with a church of set within it. Logan says, I wonder if there's a biopunk tabletop role-playing game. I think biopunk would be a good theme for one, especially with all the genetic engineering involved. Well, I did make the Bioshock RPG for friends, and so that always went very well. I don't like that you can add punk onto the end of absolutely anything now and call it a genre, though. That's again, just me being old. So, AJ, what video game do you know got cancelled in 2011 during development? In 2011 specifically, I don't know any that I can call to mind. I'm sure there were lots. I was not there. I was thinking of one, how genetic mutations were pushed. Dr. Moreau, I see. So John Smith says, it doesn't make sense that the bloodline, so known for cold logic and lack of emotion, only really wants to destroy the Bruja. I feel like they suit the Camarilla, yet they are Sabbat. No, the true Bruja aren't Sabbat. They're in the true Black Hand, which is a very death, end of the world obsessed sect, at least in prior editions. V5, there is an option to play with memoriams. That is an integral part of The Fall of London by Modiphius. It's not really time travel, though. It's just a flashback system. Daniel D'Angelo says, do I plan on making more Vampire the Masquerade content for YouTube? Yes, sure. If someone pays me to do it, I will. And that may sound mercenary, but my time is generally spent now doing things for money, as in working. And that work sometimes involves running games, doing things like that. My patreon.com/Matthew Dawkins does have a tier where you can pledge money for me to create videos on a certain subject. So if you really want to see more Vampire the Masquerade videos, then I am more than happy. But for my time, I require payment. I was not there. Poor people have like raw animal mechanical prosthesis. Okay, so this is the biopunk game, right? Okay. Pavel says, are you personally interested in playing the upcoming World of Darkness computer games? Swan Song looks excellent, I think, and I'm going to be talking about that a bit more in the future, I think. Max Beer says, what do I think is the best way to instill horror in players in tabletop RPGs? That's a good question. You've got two main options for the easiest way. One is just shock and revulsion, which I think is a bit cheap, but is easily done. The best easy way, though, is to ground it in humanity. As long as you have gone through your checklists beforehand to make sure that you're not covering subject matter that players don't want to cover, it's always worthwhile in horror to ground things in reality, because people can react better, more authentically to horror that they understand. It's why in the horror movie Black Christmas, I think it is, it's where that's the one that set the tone. It's the first slasher movie, if I recall, and it's the one where the phone call turns out to be coming from inside the house. You're led to believe that there's a slasher that's watching the women in the sorority house throughout the movie, who's calling from outside, but somehow knows what they're doing, and it turns out all along the killer is in the attic. And I'm inside the house, or the killer's calling from inside the house. That is relatable because people like to feel safe in their own homes, and when you start taking that safety away from them, then terror can ensue. Southampton Vampire by Night says, thank you for your awesome answer. I completely understand your feelings towards Vampire LARP. Things do need to change for the better. And Clara is responding as well. Thank you, Clara. On the things I always do to instill horror in the use of senses. Make sure the room in which you play is dimmed light, use music, make small props for the players, etc. I agree. I always run World of Darkness games in the evening if I possibly can. I just find it helps. People don't get terribly scared if the curtains are wide open and the light's shining in. So let's see. What else do we have here? Have I ever made an art cameo? I'm going to have to be educated on what an art cameo is. Have I ever appeared in art? Yes, definitely. I have appeared in art. I am one of the Pentex directors in Book of the Worm. I'm in on Anarchs Unbound as well, which is a magnificent book for V20. I may be in some more, but those are the two that come to mind. I was not there. Would you feel bad about me trying to do They Came From Beyond the Grave interpretation of True Black Hand, where they're intentionally hammy and incompetent as a worldwide conspiracy of the undead? I wouldn't mind at all if it results in you backing They Came From Beyond the Grave. My imagination does always soar, Cicely. Thank you. Alex says, good evening, dear sir. Hello, everybody. And AJ, I have no idea what you're talking about at this point. You seem to be making a lot of comments that are non sequiturs. So I'm not going to be reading them because they make no sense to me at all. Where am I in Anarchs Unbound? That's a good question. So let's see. Anarchs Unbound. I will see if I can... Oh, there we go. That was quick. That's me. I'm not looking at my healthiest, but, you know, when I was a priest in the Middle Ages, I wasn't feeling very well. And I am also Harold Zettler, Pentex director in Book of the Worm. Let's see if I can find that nice and quickly as well. I do love Book of the Worm. It's one of my favorite books in all of its iterations. Here we go. So that's me back there. Yeah. I get around, as they say. Let's see. Would I say Marcus Vitel, Lucius Sejanus, if you prefer, is in the top 10 most dangerous La Sombra in the world? I would. If you class Mithras as being destroyed, in fact, Marcus Vitel is arguably one of the oldest princes, emperors in his case, of any domain. I think he may be the oldest, outside of maybe some unusual cases in Europe, but I think he is. AJ says, did I play AI Dungeons? I have not. Max Beer says, have I ever played Disco Elysium? I haven't, but I have heard it's fantastic from a lot of people. I'm very proud of those illustrations of me. One of the things when I'm making tabletop RPGs as a writer or a developer, one of the most exciting things is seeing how artists interpret your words into art. When you see that art rolling in, it really fills you with a sense of euphoria because you have inspired someone to draw something. So then getting to see myself be put in art pieces is lovely too. Tally Jim says, thank you for the stream. I am an inspiration for you. Oh, well, thank you very much, Telly Jim. Please do check out the Kickstarters and the links below, but especially They Came From Beyond the Grave. That's much appreciated. That's a game I developed and created with a lot of very talented writers and artists. Rob Walker Films, has anyone been able to stump me when it comes to Vampire the Masquerade lore? No. That sounds arrogant, but no, I have not encountered anyone yet who has ever been able to stump me when it comes to Vampire the Masquerade lore, including the fact that I was one of the co-writers on the aborted Vampire the Masquerade trivia game, which wasn't the best game ever made. Hence why it was aborted. But I'm sure there are plenty of people out there that know a lot about Vampire the Masquerade, and probably some that know more than me. They just haven't ever spoken to me. And now, in terms of people I do know who know an awful lot about Vampire the Masquerade, Ian A.A. Watson of Onyx Path Publishing knows a ton. Justin Achille, of course, who is the current brand manager at Paradox, of course, knows a lot. But it could be that I know some of the more finer details of V20 than him, and whereas his period kind of stops at the beginning of V20. I've never pitted myself against Justin, of course, but I think it would be a very boring quiz if I did. How much of the greater meta plot do I think is healthy to structure a game around? Is it better or worse than going full original jihad? So I enjoy Metaplot, hence why I co-developed Beckett's Jihad Diary with Neil Raymond Price. I think we did a magnificent job of making Metaplot accessible, which has been followed into V5 with the lore sheets mechanics, which is there deliberately so that you can access Metaplot and make it a part of your characters. So I like using a bit of Metaplot in my stories, but I don't ever require that players have read up on it beforehand. I will never make you play back seat or second fiddle, if you prefer, to Lucita and Anatole and so on, as they do adventurous things. More that if they're doing something in a novel or in Beckett's Jihad Diary, I will adapt that plot into a chronicle that I'm running and just put the player characters, the protagonists, in their roles instead. Let's see, what else do we have? Tony, odd question. Did you used to ink stamp a sun with a face image in your RPG books? Because I think I once bought one of your books on eBay. Nope, never did that. Paladin Demo says there was a Vampire the Masquerade trivia game. There was, but it was cancelled. Red Seb says, Kementiri, where is she these days? That's a very good question. Reads Beckett's Jihad Diary for a clue for that. Diocese Templar, what is your most anticipated tabletop RPG coming out in the coming months? Yeah, well, they came from Beyond the Grave, naturally. It's in the link below, and it's currently on Kickstarter. Back it. And, of course, make sure you add the money for the deck and the director's screen if you haven't already. I'd really love us to hit the next stretch goal within the next day or so. We're very close to Tales of Depravity, so yeah, looking forward to that. Other than that, game I've really enjoyed is Alice is Missing, which is by Hunters Entertainment. It's a voiceless RPG. It's an RPG you play purely by messenger, where the eponymous Alice has gone missing, and each of you play different people in her life, and it's through your text roleplay and through various random events in the game that you get to track down what happened to her. It's a really fantastic mystery game, an innovative style. I really recommend you check it out. Cicely says, with the videos that have monologues, how do you recite it all so well? Do you memorize the whole thing? Do you improvise the speech? Obviously, practice comes into preparation, but still, I improvise. I don't script, and I don't memorize. The World of Darkness 5th edition videos, my Vampire the Masquerade Clan videos, all those ones are all improvised. It just so happens that I know a lot about the subject matter so that I can talk about it at length without deviation, hesitation, or repetition, just like I am right now. Often, I don't even blink. Have you ever done work together with Mark Reinhagen? Asks Kurgast. I have, and yeah, that was all right. Mark's. I enjoy working with Mark in the sense that Mark is clearly to be respected as the one of the creators of Vampire the Masquerade, and I can't take that away from him. I will never be one of the creators of Vampire the Masquerade. Wes says, what's your opinion on the advancement of technology? Many games I have found tend to stagnate tech to the early 2000s. I think it's perfectly fine to advance technology. V5 does it very well because it puts vampires on the back foot again. Technology is being monitored by organizations run by mortals who want to see the end of vampires. So yeah, that works for me. Oh, Tony knows all about Hunters Entertainment's games. Luke Griffith says, I personally think technology isn't a problem. Yep, I agree. Rob Walker says, what are a few of your favorite films that inspired They Came From Beyond the Grave? Probably the Portmanteau movies. I've always enjoyed short stories framed by a weak narrative, like Tales from the Crypt, House That Dripped Blood, Asylum. Let's see, what else? They Came From Beyond the Grave. There is a movie, I believe, of that name, which is also a Portmanteau movie. What is it called? The Monster Club. That's a very silly one, but I enjoy that too. Pavel says, how will the social distancing influence how people play and experience RPGs, in your opinion? Well, it's been going on for nearly 6 months now, in fact, and people are still playing RPGs. I think they've adapted to online play because they've had to. I know my regular gaming group has been doing a lot of online gaming, and it seems to be working all right. Now, I don't think this is going to change things forever. The Spanish flu didn't either, but it's going to change some things. And will it mean more people are comfortable playing online? Probably. But I know for a fact when I can safely go back to my home group face-to-face with my players, I'll be doing that. See, Tony, I'm not much of a collector. Yeah, I may look like I am from everything behind me, but as I say in most videos, I try and give RPGs away or sell them whenever I can. So the Vampire collection behind me is drastically diminished from what I had a few years ago. Because when I've read something to death, I just don't see the need in keeping it anymore, and I don't like to lend books. I prefer to give them away. John Smith says, who are all the big names on YouTube involving World of Darkness? I'm aware of things like Vampire the Masquerade and Werewolf the Apocalypse, somewhat niche. Look up the Primogen, and look up Law by Night. They are a couple of new ones that you will probably enjoy. They do Vampire the Masquerade videos much as I used to. And then there was silence. Any specific tips for reading your players when running a game, aiming for mood and immersion? Look at their faces, listen to the way they're saying things, put them on the spot, but not in a uncomfortable way. Put them on the spot to ask them how their character feels about a current situation. Sometimes by getting someone to talk through their character's feelings, it will actually immerse them more in the plot. Ikoran says Strange Adventures and Outstar are both pretty good too. That is quite correct. Marcelo Gonzalez says, hello. Hello, Mark. Good to see you. LARP Crafter, I'm curious, is there decent dice app for online forums such as Hangouts? Well, yeah, you can just go on Google and say roll 1d6 and it will work, and it does it for any die. So just use Google. Let's see. What's your favorite movie with Dracula in it? That's a very good question, Nicholas, because there's a lot of very good Dracula movies and a lot of very bad Dracula movies. I'm a big fan of Dracula AD 1972, I think it is. It could be 74, but I think it's 72. And it is set in the year that it purports to be. It's a late Hammer Dracula movie. Christopher Lee is clearly bored of it, but I just love the aesthetic of it. It's great fun. And Van Helsing is a woman in that one, which is refreshing. Tony says, did you know a guy died skydiving? They marked his death as COVID-19. A guy died of cancer after many years, again marked as COVID-19. They are inflating their numbers. Well, I'm not interested in any kind of conspiracy theory like that. The idea that someone died skydiving and they marked it as COVID-19 is frankly hilarious. Well, I hope that didn't happen. Bambi says, I hope you keep gaming with me. So here's a point. Bambi, Mark, Nicholas, and others on this chat are all members of my Patreon, and therefore they're on my Discord. Therefore, I am running games for them. Currently, I'm running 3 games for my Patreons, although I had a weekend off, and I've been given a weekend off this coming weekend by my lovely players. And the games I'm running are Pathfinder, Vampire the Masquerade, and Call of Cthulhu. 3 big hitters, and I'm enjoying all 3 of them. And it's so wonderful to get to play with these people because they're such fantastic players. It's wonderful games. Some of them are very new to each of their games. Some of them are quite nervous with it, but we're so gentle and friendly and accommodating, and the Discord community on my Gentleman Gamer Discord is just so welcoming. I'm not saying that for myself. I'm saying every single person on there is just so kind and generous with their time. So thank you to all of you watching. I have a lot of fun with all of you. Let's see. What else do we have? Isn't drinking blood from the glass on the stream a violation of the Masquerade, says Pavel. Nah, it's too weak to be blood. It's synthetic blood, like in True Blood. Daniel D'Angelo says, do I personally like Dracula by Bram Stoker? As in the novel, yes. It's the original. It's the best, and you can't really beat that. And if you mean Bram Stoker's Dracula the movie, I think it's a little overproduced, but it's still a very good movie. Freighter Ophioni. Sorry, I may have fucked that up. I definitely did, in fact. Planning any upcoming Chronicles of characters to play that you're super excited about? Not planning any right now, but I am running for my home group, which I'm currently running for online, a game of Pendragon, which is great fun. I love running the tourneys, the quests, the winter phases as actual role play, the finding brides, producing heirs, making big family trees, dying in hunting accidents, and then playing your illegitimate son who has various personality defects. It's great. It's like Crusader Kings, but as a tabletop role-playing game. Pendragon has been great fun. I've been running it for the last few weeks now. It's an Arthurian RPG set in about the 5th century at the time we're starting. And yeah, we're just having a hell of a lot of fun with it. So, let's see. What else do we have here? Tony, I can't attest for why people are being apparently classified as dying from COVID if they die skydiving. I don't think that's true. AJ says, my favorite part of Wolfenstein is an alternate Hitler because he looks old. That is a weird thing to come out of nowhere with, AJ. Red Seb says, will we see more wisdom videos from that gentleman of the Clan of Death? Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I have a Patreon. If people want to pay me to make videos about Vampire, I'm more than happy to do them. Right now, I am paid to do other things. But if people pay me to do that, I will do it. It's as simple as that. Thank you, Clara, for stepping in there. Shane says, off-topic recommendation, Black Sabbath starring Boris Karloff. Boris Karloff in a late film, 1963. It's a very good movie. Well, it's not a very good movie. It's an okay movie, but Boris Karloff always makes it worth tuning in. John Smith says, B. Dave Walters recently collaborated with the Primogen How to Play Ventru. Would I consider a collaboration with him for a video of his? Yeah, I've collaborated with B. Dave before on... They Came From Beyond the Grave. There's a video of that on the Onyx Path YouTube channel. In fact, that actual play will be on the Onyx Path cast this Friday. Would I collaborate with the Primogen? Yes, definitely. We've already discussed it, although we hadn't discussed it for Vampire. We discussed it for a Metal Gear themed video. So if you like those video games, that should come up in the next couple of months. So AJ, I'm probably going to ignore you at this point because you seem to be talking crap. Love you, whoever you are, but yeah. Tony, you've heard from nurses around the world that people skydiving have been declared dead from COVID-19. I think you may be being fed a crock. Film, any tip for playing a Malkavian? Yes. Research mental illness if you particularly wish to depict it. Don't define the character by the mental illness because people who have mental illnesses tend not to be defined by them. Don't play the character as the Joker and don't play the character as funny bunny carrying teddy bear, knife in a teddy bear, fish milk, all that bullshit. The best kind of Malkavians are the ones that are tragic and or disturbing, and I think if you play them as a human with a mental condition, then you're more likely to get true horror out of that character than you are if you try and play a wacky gonzo Harley Quinn Joker style Malkavian. Different people's mileage may vary. Some people like Malkavians like that. I do not. I never have. Let's see. Yeah, let's not talk about COVID anymore. Metal Gear. I did say Metal Gear, Daniel. John Smith, have you watched What We Do in the Shadows? Both the movie and show are hilarious. I have indeed. What We Do in the Shadows is amazing. It's fantastic. It's probably my favorite vampire movie. Despite the fact it's not serious in the slightest, it is still my favorite. Paladin Demo says, what's some of your contributions to W5? I can't comment on W5 at this time, but I'm sure there will be news released about it soon. And hopefully you'll like it. Trent would make a good Malkavian, yes. Tony, they do work... Oh, okay. I'm going to call a moratorium now on people discussing COVID in the chat because I'm really not in the mood for conspiracy theories about it. I know someone who has died from it and they were not declared dead from a skydiving accident. Well, point being, it is a serious illness. People are dying from it. And that's the end of discussion. If you keep talking about it, feel free to leave or I will find a way to eject you. That's not me having anything personal against you. I've got something personally against what you're saying. Mothmup says, if one wanted to somehow publish their own role-playing game, what would be the most important thing to have prepared beside a playable game? A pitch to a company to publish it for you. That would be the best thing you could do. I think, well, while the developing and publishing yourself is a perfectly feasible route, if you want to make an indie game that sells so well, I have had better experience selling ideas to other companies. That's what I think. So what that also entails is networking, getting a reputation for yourself, write on other RPGs before you try and do your own. People aren't going to have much faith in someone who just arrives on the scene with a new product. As a general rule, people have got to build up either a fan base or a network of contacts within the industry, build up a bit of faith and confidence before you start selling your own thing. Red Seb says, do vampires taint a place in some way? They worm taint a place in some way. Freighter says, which tribe deserves to lead the Garou nation, and why is it the Shadow Lords? It's the Red Talons, obviously. Cicely says, from my experience playing a Malk, there will be a sense of disconnect. You will not be fully believed or trusted, potentially feared by those you like, and it's lonely, but you must stay with people. Well, that's a good way of phrasing it. All Lucky 7 says, hello, have I considered participating in the RPG A Day event by Autocratic? I don't know who Autocratic is, I'm afraid. Paladin Demo says, depends on how much of the worm's commands they listen to, Reb. I think all vampires should leave a worm taint, whether they are nice or nasty, because they are unnatural beings, and it lends itself to the tragedy and the fanaticism of werewolves if vampires are slaughtered on sight, even if they're the most charitable bloodsucker there is. For whatever reason, werewolves associate them with the worm. Even if they're trying their best to be the most humane and charitable vampire in existence, werewolves will still slaughter them. And that's the way I do it. Not because I lack nuance, but I just think it plays better into tragedy. Yep, build a portfolio. How's the Cults of the Blood Gods game doing? I haven't seen it yet. The Cults of the Blood Gods Chronicle finished a while back. You can check it out on Red Moon Roleplaying's YouTube channel. I'm currently playing a game of Lancer, which is a mech RPG. I'm using Roll20 for that. And that's been a lot of fun. It's actually being played with the people in my home group. I'm running and playing with them right now. And I've only just started that. It's my first mech RPG. It's my first time using Roll20 with the battle mats and all that. That's been a lot of fun. I've never really looked at mechs. I'm not being big into anime and that sort of thing, but it's really quite a lot of fun. I'm enjoying it, and the GM is excellent. Alexander Baruti Azevedo Siqueira says, have I played the Alien RPG? Do I have any thoughts on the game? I have played it, and it's brilliant. Free League know how to make a beautiful, fantastic, well-written RPG. It's obviously best suited to one-shots, but I don't see a problem with that. Some games are best as one-shots, and not everything needs to be a lengthy D&D campaign. Alien is a brilliant RPG. Max Beer says, how to tackle superstition mindset of mortals in Dark Ages Vampire or Call of Cthulhu? Hard to convey shock as everyone believes in things that go bump in the night. Well, no, I don't think it is hard to convey shock, because they are going to be distrustful and paranoid about everything. Any new arrival in the village is a potential intruder, attacker, monster, and therefore if you're looking for how villagers should act, certainly have one of them emblazon the house with a cross, have another one hunt you down in the night because they think you're a monster, have another one think that you're a plague carrier, have another one go to the local priest to assemble a hunting party. There's lots of different ways you can portray villager paranoia. Okay, Tony, I've given you a warning, and unfortunately I'm going to have to put you on timeout. So, Red Seb Munzer, Lancer, as in Battletech. I believe it's connected, yes. So Joseph Southwell says, I love your shows. Are you going to do any Vampire 5th edition? I've been writing Vampire 5th edition since it came out. I wrote on the core books that are behind me. And am I going to be running any Vampire 5th edition? Check out Red Moon Roleplaying's YouTube channel, where I ran Cults of the Blood God, The Family, for them, which is a Hecata, Giovanni if you prefer, based story that starred, in fact, Clara, who's on this chat, the Lady Gamer. John Smith, how did I first get into tabletop RPGs? Via a circuitous route. I read a lot of Forgotten Realms novels without knowing they were D&D connected. I played a lot of games like Baldur's Gate, Icewind Dale, Baldur's Gate 2. I was looking up characters from Baldur's Gate on the college library computer when a man came up behind me, put his hand on mine, moved my mouse to the web address, breathed heavily in my ear and said, "Type in tsr.com." And so I did, and it actually navigated to the Wizards website, I believe. And that's how I learned about Dungeons and Dragons. He invited me to a gaming group, and against my best sensibility, I attended. And I thought I was going to be playing D&D. It turned out my first session was Hercules and Xena: The Legendary Journeys. D&D was run on the other week, and alternately. But that's how I got into role-playing, and ever since, I haven't really stopped. So, LARP Crafter, thank you very much for your continued awesome work. I have got to get going. Oh, thank you very much, LARP Crafter. I will have an awesome rest of the day. Oh, sorry if it's blacking out for people. I can see my signal is going down, but there is a storm raging outside. Probably not the best time to stream. Do I prefer V5 or V20? I love them both for different reasons. V20 for familiarity, V5 for its innovations. I don't use all the subsystems of V5. I find I pick and choose them as I want to, but I think all RPGs are like that. After you've played them enough times, you just start playing with the parts you like. What do I think about the new Werewolf video game coming out? There's actually 2 Werewolf video games coming out, Joseph, and I'm very excited about both of them. I'm not entirely sure what all the criticism is about. Some of the Werewolf game has been getting that it's a single-player, single-tribe game. I'm quite happy playing a video game like God of War, if it is supposed to be like God of War. Not everything needs to be a tabletop RPG with 13 options. And so I'm very much looking forward to both. I would love Pillars of Eternity. I do love Pillars of Eternity. I have played it, but the second one is even better. Any tips on using vehicles for Wraith the Oblivion? Craft them out of a bowline, out of souls, and you're good. Or make a relic, I guess. Someone's Chevy might be stuck in the underworld, and you can drive that around. Gargoyle's still a thing in V5. They're not yet. I believe we've referenced one of them in Chicago by Night, though. Gal, you don't need to apologize for being late. Daniel says, any thoughts on action-oriented Vampire the Masquerade games? Have I been part of games like that weren't just D&D players playing Vampire? Yes, I mentioned one earlier, playing a game where you are all participating as Alastors, hunters of Anathema on the Red List. That was a lot of fun. And so, I think it's perfectly doable. You just need to be aware of the combat rules in Vampire the Masquerade if you're doing that. Ratburger says, I'm looking to start the Fall of London campaign, but friends told me that V30 is better than the new V5. Your pick. I assume you mean V20, and I like both of them for different reasons. Honestly, it's the dealer's choice. Thieves' Tools, I found out about Degenesis RPG from your tweet a while ago. Checked it out, and it seems great. Were you ever involved in the Degenesis game as a player or ST? I've not played it yet. I've got it on my shelf, though. John Smith, you said that you require money for your time as you're a busy man. Would you say you're happy with the success you found? I understand it's a rather personal question, so feel free to not answer. I am happy. I mean, it comes with its share of stresses, just like any other job does. And it comes with its share of sleepless nights, working all evening, working all morning, working all day for not enough money. But in truth, I am very happy. I have found my calling in the sense that I design games for a living. And I know that is a very fortunate place to fall into, but I know I also worked hard for it. I also know I have certain privileges that not everyone does as a start. I'm a man, I'm white, and I'm British, and I think that goes a long way in society. But that isn't necessarily to say it's any better. It just means I have an innate advantage that's helped me onto that rung. But at the same time, I know I've also worked my arse off, and I still work my ass off to stay in this industry, and I enjoy it for the most part. I dislike dramas, but they're luckily fleeting. I like to consider it a generally enjoyable experience with short periods of acute stress. I think that's the best way. But in terms of things like deadlines, quality of work, I'm very happy. I feel I'm doing a decent job. Paladin Demo says, I remember that criticism. Earthblood was originally pitched as a Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines game, character creation included. I don't mind single player, just waiting patiently. Max Beer says, best way to convert D&D players to storytelling system and settings. I would recommend start with Exalted, because that's storyteller system and it's a fantasy game. Red Seb says, we appreciate all that you do for fans. I've never liked to consider people my fans, although admittedly you are. I like to consider that you are just supporters of this channel. You have supported everything I've done. I appreciate if you support They Came From Beyond the Grave on Kickstarter, because it's still running for another 2 weeks, and any pledging you can do for it is massively appreciated, because we want to produce more books for the game. The link is in the description below. I also think you should check out Vampire the Masquerade Rivals just to split your money, because although I didn't work on that game, I think it's fantastic, and I wanted to tell people about it in case you've not heard of it. Let's see. Freighter says, I have aspirations of running Cult one day. How do you compare running the Gnostic cosmic horror of Cult to the more personal horror of Vampire? What do I do differently between the two? Well, in fact, I think you've pretty much highlighted it. Vampire I make as human, as street level as possible. All the flaws, all the foibles, all the failings of the characters are very street level. In Cult, I tend to make the failings, the doings and dealings and manipulations of other eldritch beings. And that tends to be what characters, humans, are still at fault for what they do, don't get me wrong. But the antagonists in Cult are, in a way, more pervasive. Do check out my The Summit actual play with Red Moon Role Playing, because that is a Cult Divinity Lost game that I ran for them, and I feel it went very well. You're my Mark Reinhagen, says Red Seb. Oh, don't call me that. I'm quite happy to just be your Matthew Dawkins. Get Dick Nick San says, happy to see you again, but I'd like new Vampire Clan videos. If you'd like them, Get Dick, go on my Patreon, patreon.com/Matthew Dawkins, and pay for them. If that sounds mercenary, I don't apologize. If you want something and you want me to dedicate my time to doing it and doing it well, pay for it, and I will do it. Daniel, thank you very much for appreciating me. I appreciate you too. Chase says, Exalted is really cool. Have I played Legend of the Wooden? I have. I've got it on my shelves somewhere down here, I think. Somewhere down here. I don't know. It's somewhere around there. Let's see. Demonic Terror says, keep the politics out of this. No. I'm afraid I'm of the opinion that everything in life is political. The games we write are political, and the way we comport ourselves in public, in society, in our communities is political as well. Increasingly so, in fact. It may be unpleasant to you, but it is unfortunately true. And therefore, I am quite aware that as a white man, I have an easier time of it than the majority of non-white men and the majority of non-men. And I think being aware of that and being able to actually do something about it, like such as hiring diversely for a book, is a good way of helping other people and also giving voice to talents who may have otherwise not had one. Tribal T says, I've converted D&D players to Mage and Werewolf. Good for you. Crazy Dave says, something I can't understand. Max Bear says, ever played a PC game called Cultist Simulator? I haven't, but I have heard of it. Pavel says, what are some established RPG lines you would like to work on that you didn't already? I hate to sound arrogant, Pavel, but there aren't any. I have hit every single one of my goals in terms of RPG writing. I've written for every single game I've ever wanted to. Anything else now is just gravy on top. John Smith says, favorite Garou tribe is the Red Talons for me. Ewind Ryder says, I became a new fan when I showed my son the werewolf videos you did. Thank you. Not many people comment on the Pentex Guide to Werewolves videos, but they are probably my favorites. I prefer them to the vampire videos, in fact. When I was new to Vampire the Masquerade, was there any clan that took a while to understand, any that clicked? Yeah, Malkavians. My first ever character was a Malkavian, and I played them horribly because I was young, I was stupid, and I played them as an awful stereotype. And I obviously had to grow up, develop a bit of empathy, and understand a bit more about mental illness before I could play a Malkavian in a way that I feel is accurate. To the point now that I don't play Malkavians because I have I don't really want to play a character defined by mental illness. As I said earlier, they shouldn't be defined by mental illness. Anyway, I've got to go now, but thank you very much, everyone, for watching, and do support They Came From Beyond the Grave. It's in the description below. Bye!